The collective has been going through a lot of shifts lately, energetic and spiritual shifts. At those times, it feels as if your mind and your intuitive, your higher self, are on the opposite spectrum. It feels like a tug of war between them. And you don't know which direction to take. There are moments when you feel so down, you feel like you shouldn't go the path that your higher self is pulling you towards. And there are also times when you don't even know what's your higher self, what's your ego or your mind. And what are they telling you? And why are they so disconnected? Why are they not in sync? Should you be even going through this and moving forward with this? So I'll tell you my example. Ever since, even before Christmas, I have started feeling like this. It's like an energetic pull towards one side, but my mind has been pulling me to the other side. And I've recently manifested a relationship that I wanted, but I felt as if I shouldn't go through with it. I felt that I'm changing and I'm shifting, I'm doing something different. And my mind was so loud. My ego mind was so loud with all these negative thoughts about it. And granted, though, I have been in relationships in the past that were not good for me, where I trusted people that I shouldn't trusted, that should not have been trusted. So my mind was going in the overdrive. I'm finding all of these reasons why this is not going to work and this is not the right way to go. And that's not the person that I should be with. But the thing is, it's very hard sometimes to discern, because when you're in this negative spiral of your thoughts and your mind can be so loud, it's almost like demanding for you to do something. And it's going into an overdrive. It feels like it's like alert, alert, alert. Do this, do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And during those times and those moments, it may be hard to discern, like, what exactly should you be doing? I gave you an example of this, of a relationship, but it could be anything. You could be going through a transformative shift with your life where you may have been really unhappy with your job for a very long time, and you're finally shifting, you're finally thinking about resigning, and your mind is just going into an overdrive. It wants you to stop. The ego self wants to keep you safe and wants to keep you protected and wants to keep you in the known, because that feels familiar. No matter how unhappy you are, there are parts of you that feel good about this because it's familiar. And your ego does not like the unknown because it doesn't know how to protect you. It doesn't know, it cannot, it feels like it cannot keep you safe. But knowing that emotions and feelings and thoughts come and pass. And for me, a spiritual awakening journey is such that the more you meditate, the more you're in tune with your higher self, the more you're able to discern what is your ego mind or your mind being in anxiety mode versus your higher self and versus your intuitive self, your being, your spirit. It's actually quite easy. It's not that hard to discern. Even though when you're in a negative spiral, you almost want to just get out of that anxiety mode and just make a decision not to go through with something because you're in such an anxiety about it that it almost feels real. It almost feels like you should trust it. You should trust that. It's the opposite of that, because through the spiritual journey, the more you meditate, the more you'll realize what's your actual self-awareness. How does it feel like? It feels very calm. It feels very peaceful. It feels very expansive versus your anxious mind, your ego self, feels very constrictive and restrictive, and it wants it. You feel you're almost like in a body ache, anxiety mode. So you know then that that is not your higher self, that is not your spirit, because it's not, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel constrictive. It feels actually open. It feels more expansive. Also, when your mind is calm and peaceful, you get a hit of insight. Like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I should be doing. It doesn't speak to you in a way that the anxious mind speaks to you. So in that way, it's easy to discern, because you know when you're anxious, when your emotions are very negative, when you feel very negative and restrictive, you should not act on those emotions and those thoughts. They're not you. They're your ego self, your anxious mind. So also another point that is, I feel like is very important to make, and in the past, there have been a lot of videos about turning your negative emotions into positive. It's not, don't do that. It's not actually good. It's also not helpful, and it's almost impossible to do when you're in a negative spiral and you're going through all of those negative emotions. Don't try to force them into positive emotions. That's not helpful, and it's not going to work. And it's not the true, it's not going to end up doing you any good, really. You sit with them. You sit with those emotions. You're aware of them. You become aware of them. You become very present with them, even though it's really hard to do that when your mind is going into an overdrive. I know. And it's not even meditating on them. It's really sitting with them and letting them pass for as long as they need. And sometimes that takes a couple of days. Like for me, it took a couple of days for them to pass. But then once they pass, it's very funny, but like you almost wake up one day and you're like, oh, yeah, that was not true. It was not me. So let them settle down, let those emotions, negative thoughts, because you're shifting. When you're shifting and you're transforming, your ego self will do anything and everything to keep you in a state of being where you were before, especially if you were in that state for years and or months. It doesn't want to go into the unknown. That's very scary. It's fear. So let those emotions and thoughts pass, quiet down, observe them, quiet down. And it's truly in the moment when they pass, when you finally have that clarity of mind. You're like, okay, I know that this was my ego trying to keep me safe, and that's okay. So trust your intuitive self, trust your intuition, trust your beingness, trust the path that you're on. You're not transforming for no reason. There is a reason why you're leaving your old self, you're leaving your old belief system, you're leaving your old patterns the way of being, who you were before, part of your ego is dying, and it doesn't want to do that. It really does not. But let it slowly evaporate. Let those emotions pass, and it won't be too long when you wake up and you're like, oh, okay, this is now my new self, and I'm settling into my new reality. Thank you, love. I hope this is helpful to you. Please leave me in the comment section any thoughts you have, anything you want for me to talk into or get into deeper. And I'll see you soon.